All right, today we're going to show you what makes a really good retail KPI dashboard. So this dashboard is developed over working with several different retailers and seeing what are really the most key important stats that you want on the highest level executive KPI dashboard. We've got a bunch of other dashboards here that allow you to drill way down and analyze specific products, brands, sales channels, so on and so forth. Really drill into your customers, all those things. But these are the ones that go to the top. This is your executive flash, the things that you run the business on, that you talk about every week in kind of like a high level leadership meeting. And so what would I put on my first dashboard, my highest level for a retail company? Well, the first thing is we have a chart here for business lines. And so if you have multiple businesses or your business is kind of segmented into bigger parts of the business, it's really important to be able to see what are my gross sales. That's what the length of each bar is for those different business lines. And then what is my prior year and my forecast for any time frame. And I would be able to filter. That's what you can do with this filter. Filter to a different time frame and just view gross sales, year over year, and forecast. And you can see under the hover, there's a little bit of additional information around profit and margin. But looking at each business line in terms of that, right away I can see in this business, this demo here, one business line is way smaller than the other. And so I can treat those businesses accordingly. The second thing that I would have is a really good idea of the sales trend. That's what this next graph shows you. You can see which direction your sales are heading. Are they headed up or are they headed down? Really key, really important, right? And I can see month over month. And as I hover, I can see which month and I know which direction I'm heading. So I can get an idea if I have somewhat of a seasonal business, I can really, ascertain which way it's going in which month. And again, I can change these dates. So if I wanted to look at several different Octobers, I can stretch this date bar out and compare those several different Octobers and see how things change seasonally versus was this a unique October where we were up in sales. And then again, if possible, I would also show my profit margin and my prior year. That's what this blue line and this green are, to see, are we beating our forecast? Are we beating last year? And then what is our profit margin? Are we maintaining margin even as sales grow? The next KPI that I would build on that very first dashboard and that we've developed by working with customers is a division of our sales channel. So again, this is going to be your sales over any given time period. And you can see it's following the exact same line as the bar chart. It's a trend over time. But within the areas of these different colors, I can see how my different sales channels are performing and how they're contributing. And so, for example, one really good example insight here is we had a nice little pop back in June. And I go, man, what created that weird pop? How come it was so much higher than these other months? Well, as I look back here, I can see I had some pretty good wholesale. These other sales channels did not change that much, although it was not too bad for retail. It was probably better than the months ahead and behind. But especially in wholesale, we went from almost nothing to a really good, you can see 350K in sales under wholesale. So that created that pop here. And then same thing with the last few months as we had this steady trend upward. Web has contributed that pretty well, but wholesale has really been driving that growth over the last 3 or 4 months. That's the channel that's popping off, and I can manage my business as such, just knowing what's changing, what's happening. The next KPI that I would have is a list of my product lines. Again, this is by gross sale. And so I can see that technology, I'm selling more technology than anything else. And in fact, the bottom 15 or so product lines, I'm selling way more technology than all those put together. And I can see again my forecast, my prior year sale, my profit margin. I would try to build those in if possible to all of these different charts. But understanding what's going on with your different product lines and what really is my bread and butter and what are my more emerging product lines and what are my dogs that I should kind of consider. What am I going to do? Do we market harder on garden supplies or do we make some different types of decisions? And then finally, I would try to get a measure of comparing my customers gained and my customers lost. So this red line is going to be all of the customers who just crossed 12 months where they've not ordered from us. So again, if I hover over May 24 here, I can see that I had 1,256 customers that crossed the 12-month mark where they haven't reordered. And I want my customers reordering within every 12 months. Otherwise, I consider them kind of an unhealthy customer, right? And so each month I can see I'm getting more and more customers that are crossing that 12-month mark where they haven't reordered. And then in green here are the new customers that I've acquired. And I'm not even replacing the ones that are leaving. And so this demo business here has a little bit of a customer problem. They're losing a lot of their customers aren't reordering, and they're not gaining new ones fast enough. And so that's something that's really actionable and we can really work on. I can go and build a specific dashboard that would really help me drill into who are the customers that are crossing 12 months and how did I acquire them? What did they buy and why are they not buying again? Did I market to them? But on the highest level, I would just have some idea of my customers gained and my customers lost. So those are the 5 really core KPIs that I would have. My business lines and how they're performing, a trend of how sales is going, my sales channels and which ones are contributing to my trends, my product lines and which ones are contributing during that time frame, and then my customers gained and customers lost during that time frame. And then if possible, the ability to measure a forecast year over year profit and margin in addition to the sales for each of those KPIs. And of course, I would also make sure that each of those KPIs contains all of my data from across my business about those products and customers and sales channels. So if you're selling in retail and you've got data coming in through your POS, and then you're selling in e-commerce, or maybe you have a couple websites or a third-party marketplace like Amazon, maybe you're selling wholesale and those all get logged in your ERP or your CRM. Having the data points from each of those systems merged and cleaned into one place. So when you're looking at your product sales, you're not going, well, over here it's this and over there it's that, but I'm not quite sure it's the same product, or I can't quite tell if I lost this customer or if they just bought from a different channel. Those are all really, really important. And so I know this is a little bit of diversion from what KPIs would I build. It's more how would I build them? I would build them on top of a data warehouse that merges all of my data from all of those key sources. Those are your core KPIs for a retail KPI dashboard.